Hello, so in this unit 10 of 504, I would like to discuss with you building accountability and performance. And basically, as the title suggests, what I'm interested in here is to discuss with you in this unit, is to discuss with you whether there is a relationship between accountability and performance. And the unit starts with different discussions around what we could call, in a way, traditional ways of being accountable and, how we understood, in a way, accountability in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and how there's been a progressive shift from accountability to responsibility. Now, what do we mean by accountability? Very often, what we mean by accountability is, in a way, a very jargon type word, answerability. In other words, the idea that you should answer to certain authorities. It's the idea that you answer to, for instance, parliamentary committees, or that you are, you answer to a minister, and so on and so forth. And so the idea of accountability has to do with this notion that it goes beyond responsibility. But obviously, all of this has changed, and as you know, governments have had major challenges, especially in the area of accountability and transparency and responsibility. And this is why we talked, for instance, in Unit 8 about the democratic deficit. This is why we talk about, issues that have to do with service delivery, because all of these things are a bit murkier. So you have an article in this unit, for instance, by Savoy, who really tries to get to the core of why accountability today is both confusing, maybe not also well understood, and I think it will help you, even though it seems to raise many different reasons why accountability doesn't work or is well understood, not as well understood as in the past. In part, it is because, as we've seen in class, there are so many more voices at the table when it comes to policy decisions and policy making and preparing policies. It's also because policy decisions have become maybe a bit more controversial, because, for instance, people use and sometimes even abuse access to information. Because there are more and more whistleblowers within the bureaucracy, because reasons of, for instance, transformation in the bureaucracy of anonymity, and that, the media especially tend to be a bit more aggressive at naming people and going after decisions as if they only resulted from the influence of very specific individuals. All of this being, in a way, according to Savoy, the result of what we could call single agent access. In other words, the privileged access of specific individuals and or lobbies or groups or single interest groups and so on and so forth to decision makers such as ministers, prime ministers, or staffers behind Prime Minister's office, for instance. So there is a bit of an interesting article here, because it lists, a multitude of reasons that would allow us to understand, in a way, why accountability is confusing as a term today, and that it's not so clear to understand accountability, and how it has moved from being just about accountability to responsibility and accountability, as it is discussed in the literature. And that's why you have this article also by Jarvis that looks at moving responsibility across levels of governments, tier levels of government. So certain area of responsibility could be, much more effectively perceived and understood, and therefore responsibility can be higher when they moved upwards or downwards across the federal system. And that's an interesting discussion that Jarvis proposes here, which I think is particularly well set when we look at service delivery issues and the relationship between accountability, responsibility, public-private partnership, partnership with non-profit or third sector organizations, and when basically government delegates the service delivery at arm's length, right, to other agencies that are the frontliners. So you see the relationship here with both, issues of democratic deficit, but also the service delivery issue. And that's quite an interesting article, I think, by Jarvis. We also have some reference to some of the good readings that you've done, and that comes back in this unit that has to do with, the diffusion. The idea that accountability is too diffuse and too multiple to be well understood. And I think that's kind of echoes what Donald Savoy has developed in his paper, but it's kind of a slightly different perspective, so it may both echo and also help you understand maybe better the various threads that are being discussed there. And then the last paper by Carroll and DeWaar looks at the relationship, which is kind of the innovative part, what governments have tried to do to, in a way, reassert control over accountability and responsibility with the usage of performance measurements and the management of measurement. Because for a number of authors, including elected officials, obviously, and public officials, if you measure what you do, obviously, you strengthen, in a way, both the responsibility side, but also the accountability side, because you can answer effectively about what you do. But it's interesting here because, it's also, we can also, in a way, raise a critique of the performance measurement management literature by looking at whether decisions are really any different because we use measurement. And so the idea of having measurement serve what purpose? And is it, a purpose that would have to do with, for instance, greater effectiveness or greater efficiency, or the good management of public funding, or the better delivery of and I'm speaking here systematically, right? I'm speaking about the better systematic delivery of policies and greater efficiency and effectiveness, which obviously is not obvious. It's actually not totally obvious, hence the article in the unit, which I think is very interesting. So with this, I want to encourage you to read and do the readings, and then I'll see you on the course space and we can discuss these issues even further. Thank you very much.